to the Patriots Unafraid Podcast. We'd like to welcome our next guest to the podcast. He's an X Games silver medalist, amateur motocross phenom, former factory Suzuki team rider, and just an all-around badass dude. Robbie Horton, welcome, brother. It's great to have you join us, and I've been looking forward to this interview for a long time.
Thank you, man. I'm happy to be here, bro.
So, Robbie, if you wouldn't mind, man, I know it's getting late, and you and I both have full-time jobs, so tell the people listening a little bit about yourself. Where did you grow up? You know, what was life like there? How was your relationship with your mom and dad? You know, what kind of student were you in school? Did you play any sports besides motorcycle racing? Just give us the gambit, man. Like, what was young Robbie like?
I guess a typical kind of redneck childhood, I guess you could say. We just loved playing in the dirt, and playing in the mud, and hunting, and fishing, and shooting, and all that good stuff until motorcycles come in the mix, and then it kind of took over from there. And, I always did. We just always enjoyed being outside and doing extreme sports. If it wasn't motocross, it was skateboarding or bicycles or something, and then we got into. I played about every sport there was out there, and I ended up sticking with soccer for a while. I played it for 12 or 13 years. It kind of worked out, kept me in shape for racing for a long time until I had to make the choice of what I wanted to do, race motorcycles or play soccer. And of course, soccer wasn't as cool of a sport back then as motocross, so I stuck with motocross stuff. And look back after that, in school and all that good stuff, man. I guess I was average, I guess maybe you could say. I got by. Exactly on the honor roll every semester, but I got through, and one of the things was, I guess I did okay. My struggles in school, I guess, would be, which is funny, would be like math and stuff like that, and now it's one of those things I use damn near every day, and I wish I would have paid more attention in math class. But thank God for calculating.
Yeah, for real. Now, yeah, running a successful construction business and then dabbling in some machine shop stuff on the side. It's like, yeah, I was really horrible at math. It's like, it's like you're pretty much your life now is math. All right, man. So how did you, and a lot of the folks I'm sure that are going to be listening to this, they know your story and things like that, at least a little bit about it, you and your brother. But how did you and your older brother Richie, how did you guys get into motocross?
Well, it really all started with my older brother. He actually had a little childhood friend back in the day. Like we got into playing sports and big into soccer when we were real young. And one of my brother's friends that he played with had a little mini bike at his house, and he had been hanging out over there some and then riding his kid's little motorcycle and coming home telling my dad how cool it was and that he wanted one. And my dad, he never rode a motorcycle in his life, and up until we got into it, he made it. My dad was all about making some bets when we were younger. He was all about making us work for what we wanted. And so we always made some sort of deal with all kind of stuff. So he made a deal with my brother. They had a big fight coming up, and he told him if he went out there and scored 4 goals in a row, he would buy him a mini bike, and I'd be damn, my brother pulled it off, and next thing you know, we got on a mini bike. But and it started with him riding. I was he was probably 7 years old, 6, 7 years old or something maybe at the time. So I was 4 or 5, and of course I wanted to learn to ride it too. So eventually I got on it, started riding, but it's kind of one of those things where I don't know what it is when you're little and you're not using brakes, but I would just do laps around the house, round and round, and holler till somebody come out there and jump in front of me and catch me. That was most of my riding experience at that point, just around the yard, and I like to give it some gas and look back and see how much dust I made and, all that cool stuff. And one day we had a little field next to our house, and I was coming across the field, and, my little open face Griffin helmet with a little short little visor off the front of it, and I gunned it through there and looked back, see how much dust I made, and when I looked back up, I was headed right into the fence. And I don't know why, I had an issue with brakes back then. I just froze and just watched myself plow through the fence, through a wooden fence, and crashed out to the road and freaked everybody out. Of course, it looked worse than what it was. It was a wooden fence, but of course, I had this little open face helmet with pus in my nose and junk. And that was my first good crash. And needless to say, after that, I learned how to use brakes. It was amazing. I had the brakes figured out after that.
Oh, yeah.
They evolved from there. It was kind of the thing. We played around. We just rode around the yard. We didn't know anything about racing dirt bikes, or that there was even dirt bike racing at that point in our lives. And we, kept riding and eventually got a little bit bigger. My brother kind of outgrowed the little 50 we had, so Dad just assumed on the next size up to the 60. So he goes and buys the 65, and we had it for, probably several weeks or for a while, and my brother was riding it some and all, and anyhow, one afternoon my dad decided to get on it and take it for a spin, and not realizing how much power these things had. We didn't know what a difference between a 4-stroke and a 2-stroke was.
Oh, yeah, and a real racing bike.
You must say he didn't make it very far. He looped it out and everything else, and scared the mess out of him. He thought he was going to kill one of us kids on that thing. He was ready to get rid of it. And we had some people down the road, and we didn't really know them that well back then, the Metermers, and they were big into racing back then, and we got to know them, and they talked us into hanging on to it and going and checking out a race, and we went and checked out a race, and that was all it took. My brother was so wanting to do it. So he started racing, done his first race, and of course, I wanted to be like Big Brother, so it wasn't too much long after he decided I wanted to race. So we got another bike and took off, and at that point, I wasn't old enough really to race a 65, but I started on 60s, and they had AMA was 7 to 11 age group, so we mainly ran outlaw tracks. Because I was only 6 years old at the time, and we did that for a little while, and decided, we were going to try to do some AMA events, and but I couldn't do it on a 65, so I had to go back down, and we got a P-dub. So it was only your option for 50s back then. So I went back to a P-dub, and I just got used to suspension and all that good stuff, and I rode the P-dub for a few days, and after I tacoed the frame in half and everything else, I decided it should probably better for me to wait till I got a little older, and we just run outlaw till then.
And for some of the people who might be listening to this, that if you know Robbie's story and you kind of know where he's at now and where he's been in his career, that's going to make a lot of sense to you. And the ones that don't, just YouTube Robbie Horton, and you'll kind of see what he's talking about, because he's he's got a reputation for kind of going out to the max effective range of his equipment, and kind of testing the limits of what it's designed to do. Oh yeah,
that's what I've always. You always notice, most of the time when I do have a get off or a crash, it's always normally an end of. And to me, when you end of, that's just a sign that your bike's not going as fast as you are. Sometimes I'm just faster than my bike.
Yeah, why am I continuing to travel and the bike is stopped? Like, what's going on here? Yeah. And some of us have been lucky enough to witness that a few times. And Robbie, your brain and your wrist is traveling a little bit faster than that machine. All right.
Exactly. Yeah.
So you and Richie.
That you just when you go out, you give it your all, and as long as you're giving it 110% of everything you got, the rest will work itself out. And, I mean, we just in everything we've ever done, it don't matter what it is. When I get into something, I have a tendency just to go head first and go down the rabbit hole, and I'm either all in or I'm not one or the other.
That's it. And we'll get into that a little bit later in the podcast, dude. But like I've told the first few guests that have been on here that obviously you and I have known each other for a long time, since I was a kid and you were a kid, and I've watched you kind of progress through your racing career all up until now. We're old men and adults and married with kids and mortgages and all that. But I always say that the folks that I want to invite onto this podcast, the Patriots Unafraid thing, is just people that they are like, they're like-minded. It's all or nothing, and I'm either 100% in or I'm 100% out. And that's definitely, that describes you to a T. So, all right, let's jump ahead a little bit. So you and big brother Richie, you start racing and you start getting into it. And Richie, who was an excellent rider in his own right, what was that like? What was that like racing with your big brother?
Oh, it was motivation for me. I never, and it's probably what made me faster. He was always faster than me. So every time we went to go ride or practice, it was he was somebody to chase after, and he loved it, and he loved nothing better to get behind me and just beat the damn brakes off of me and stuff me in every corner and where I'm lacking and everything else too. I never forget when the time we were out practicing, I had this, back in the day you didn't have all these cool graphics and custom helmets and all. If you had something with a graphic on it, it was custom painted, and that wasn't in the budget for us back then, and so we always had these just plain white, I call these cue ball helmets, and I had this brand new white, damn shiny cue ball of a head helmet, and we were out practicing one day, and anyhow, he come in on me hard, ended up taking me out and run me over, and I forget, left this perfect rubber tire mohawk down the middle of my helmet where he literally run over my head. And that tire mark was on that helmet to the day he got retired. I never could get it off of it.
Damn.
So I was so mad. I was wanting to go. There's no way I could have kicked his butt back then, but I wanted to so bad. But then again, at the same time, it's what made me who I am today, And it's all about all those times that make you a better rider, The little things and what the details is what, I think really kind of progressed my career. I've always been able to find that little edge or that little something, that somebody else didn't think about or do or look at the same. And my brother was good about pushing that envelope, making you find it,
Yeah. So, and for those of us that do know you and Richie and a little bit about your family, I mean, we all pretty much agree that, Richie had a big impact on Robbie. Cause we grew up watching it, man, watching you chase him and then watching, finally it got to a point where you and him you weren't really chasing him anymore. Y'all were kind of beating and banging in the corners, and then it really got fun to watch, at least for us. I'm sure for you and Richie.
He had some entertaining motos. 99% of the time he would get me, but every now and again, every dog's got his day, Sometimes the stars would align just right, and I'd get him. And he'd be so mad. Yeah, it's funny. Mom and Dad, it was a race back to the motorhome to beat us back because we were going to be scrapping or something before it was over. He'd say I've done something to him, and I say he'd done something to me.
Yep. Next thing you know, yep. But that's
and motivated us both, and made us both better riders.
That's what everybody for the most part that grew up around the motocross industry, especially in the southeast part of the country. I mean, that's what most of us all remember, from back in the 90s and early 2000s was the Horton brothers. I mean, they were fierce competitors on the track, and then sometimes it would spill over into off the track. And but yeah, definitely. I mean,
like everybody else, every motocrosser out there, we all put our heart into it, and you give it all you got, and nobody goes out on the track to lose,
exactly. Even if you're brothers.
When the gate drops, I still can race like I'm 12, and I refuse to lose and to give up. That's been the hardest part for me getting older, to learn to pick your battles. And, I am on the backside of the motocross career, I guess you say, and it's hard to turn it on and off when you're programmed to just pin it,
Oh, absolutely. And I know that you will say, yeah, I'm having to learn to tone it down a little bit, but still to this day, it's funny. I was at work today and I was talking with my boss, and I don't even remember how it got brought up, but somehow we started talking about dirt bikes, because he's a machinist and by trade, and he's all into motors and machine work and stuff. We got into talking about racing, and he was asking about the race team that we'll talk a little bit about later on in the podcast too. But he's like, well, you guys still doing the Patriot race team? And I was like, yeah, we're still doing it. I was like, Robbie, he's real busy. He runs his own company and, construction business in the summertime. So that's his busiest part of the year. So we're normally racing in the winter, and he got to talking about you, and he's like, how old is Robbie? And I was like, he's my age, and he's like, actually, he's a year older than me. And he's like, damn, he's still out there. He rides the shit out of that thing. And I'm like, yeah, he does. So you may think that you've lost a step and that comes with age, but anybody that watches you ride a motorcycle right now still thinks, damn, that guy, he can still ride. And even folks who don't know, when you got the helmet on, man, they don't know that you're in your 40s, and they're just like, damn, that guy's good.
You never forget, it's not it's a pretty easy process, when the gate drops, you hold it wide open until you see a checkered flag. But the tricky part for me, is just the conditioning and the recoveries, and things do go wrong. Unfortunately, don't heal quite as fast as you used to, and stuff like that. And just finding the time to train and try to stay in shape. It's kind of funny. It seems like nowadays I probably train harder than what I did back in the Supercross days. And that's and that's working and everything else too. You got to run the company during the day, and we got a partner in a machine shop in the evenings, and we're always into something. And always get something going on, and that's kind of somewhat, I guess, a good or bad habit of me, I'm into so many different things, everything I own or have, I love to know everything about it. I like to know how things work, and I guess because I'm a jack of many trades, but I don't know how many I'm a master of.
100%, man, and that, but Robbie, that's one of the things, man, that I think, makes you who you are, is your, and the folks that do know you, and even the ones that, that don't know you well, but they meet you or they see you at a racetrack or something, like, man, that guy, he's got a certain intensity level that, it's kind of hard to match with most folks. So yeah, man, let's dive a little bit more into, your racing career, and, let's talk some about your Team Green years with Kawasaki and some of that, and we'll talk a little bit about Loretta Lynn's and some of your prowess out at the ranch, and get into that a little bit, man. What was it like to be a Team Green Kawasaki rider at a young age?
I mean, it was Kawasaki by far runs the, one of the best amateur programs there is, and they, I pretty much over my whole amateur career and pro career, they've always were there for us, and, we got picked up with, I was trying to think, we may have been on 85 at that point when we first kind of got hooked up with them, and, it's one of those things, you didn't get much in the beginning, got some little discounts on stuff, and, but it kind of got you in the door and under their wing, and and we kept pushing and kept, hitting bigger and bigger races and working harder, and the deals got better and better, and moved up the ladder, from getting discounts, to getting free bikes, and travel money and different things, and and then and not only the help in that aspect, but just all the other riders that introduced me to, we got to come up with some, some of the best guys out there, with Carmichaels and Brock Sellers and Nick Ways and Kevin Wyndham and all these guys, and and back then we were all just a bunch of kids with our dirt bikes, and it was always fun for everybody to get together, and every year before the mini yellows, everybody meet down in Croom in Florida, and we'd all practice together for the week, and when you get that many talented people around you, you can't help but get better, and and I owe a lot of that success to my environment, and you're a product of your environment, if you hang out with these dudes, you can't help but learn from them and get better, and everybody's got their own little niche, or specialty, I guess you could say, and some guys are good at this and some are better at that, so, when you're hanging around with 4 or 5 of these different fast guys, that dude can teach you how to get across the whoops. This dude can show you how to get through the corners, and by the time at the end of the day, picked up some time, and made everybody faster.
Just picking each other's brains, and yeah.
We battled every weekend, me and Carmichael back in the 65 and 85 days, and, all the way up through our amateur careers, sometimes it'd be almost every weekend we'd be running against each other, so it made us all better riders, made us all faster.
Well, I can say, and you and I have talked before about, some of the old stories and back in the old days, but I can say that being lucky enough to be on the outside looking in, it was a treat for sure to watch you and Carmichael out there on mini bikes and 125s, just giving each other hell, and it was awesome to even then to go, man, I know that guy, that's Robbie Horton, and that's one thing I can say also, man, about you and your brother is I was a nobody in motorcycle racing back in those days, man, but anytime we would see you guys out at the racetracks, both of you were always super cool and super humble and just fun to hang around with. But then you would strap that helmet on, man, and like you said, get behind that starting gate and just go out there and just do unbelievable things. And it was cool to watch. And it was cool to watch you guys do what you did and at such a high level against, national competition. And it was just, it always, for me, it was fun to say, man, I know that guy. He talks to me in the pits, or he's whatever, and it's that was cool to see, Robbie.
Yeah, well, we all start somewhere, and we all come from the same damn place, We've always I'm no better than the next guy out there, We're all out there doing what we love to do, and that's the thing about just motorcycles in general, especially the motocross community, it is a tight knit community, and no matter where you're from or whatever, we all have that in common, and that's one thing I love about it, and is the camaraderie, being at the races, and and the good times and the bad times that come out of it. Even the bad times, in the end, you look back and those are some of the best times too.
Yep.
And the diamond comes from a lump of coal. So it all turns out good in the end.
That's it, man. That's it. Yeah, that's well said. And but like I said, that's something that I feel like separates people especially when you're in the limelight and you are getting a lot of attention and like you said, you're getting the better deals as you move on and things like that. But I feel like that you and Richie, you never really forgot, about being the little kids starting out on the little mini bike that, didn't know anything about racing. And the next thing you know, fast forward a few years later and some natural talent and probably a ton of hard work. Now you guys are up there duking it out with the best racers in America and in the world. But you guys were always humble. Your whole family was like that. And so I think that's kind of what made you guys a little bit different, at least from my standpoint. But let's talk about some of the accolades, Robbie. And I know that, and I thought to myself when I was kind of typing this thing out, how, the questions I wanted to ask and how I wanted the podcast to flow with you. I was like, you know what, man, this damn dude is so humble. I'm going to it's going to be like pulling teeth to get him to talk about himself. So I kind of formatted the questions in such a way where I forced you to, so really direct, hey, tell me about this. Cause I know that if I was just like, Robbie, tell me how awesome you were, you're not going to do it. You're like, man, I was just average, just trying to get by. So, for the folks listening, I did formulate some pretty direct questions for Robbie because he's a really, really humble dude and hates talking about himself. He hates admitting that he really was a badass. And a lot of folks' minds, he's an icon in the motocross world to this day. So let's talk about your amateur career a little bit, man. Let's, and we can't talk about that without talking about Loretta Lynn's. I know you spent a lot of time, at what's affectionately known as the ranch, Loretta Lynn's Dude Ranch. It's the biggest amateur national really in the world. How many titles do you have from Loretta Lynn's, Robbie?
3, I believe. Yeah. We have 3 of them, which is awesome. But at the same time, it took me, I think I went for like 12 or 13 years in a row, to finally pull off some wins my last couple of years there. I believe I won the schoolboy class on 125, and then I remember I won I got an A class. Win out there, maybe a B also. It might have been a super mini or a schoolboy in a B class and an A class. I ended up finally winning out there. I've been all over that damn podium, second and third and fourth, everything else. But, it took me a while, but I finally did it, and got a couple of them in before I, moved on to my pro career. And I guess my last year at Loretta's was in '96, and then I took off to Steel City, Pennsylvania, and caught the very last outdoor national of the year at Steel City, and ended up finishing. I don't remember where I ended up finishing, but it was decent enough where I think I maybe broke the top 10. I know I ended up with enough points where I was number 97 and 97. So that was kind of cool. And 97 was kind of my first year of hitting the pros and Supercross and all that good stuff.
Yeah, I remember. I remember a lot about that year, and I think maybe it was because of you and a couple other dudes that were from our part of the country that were racing at the pro level at that time. Like Jimmy Neese, and I know you and him ended up being teammates later on. But yeah, I remember watching that and paying close attention to that one season because you guys were, I think Jim was a little older than you, but I know you were right off of, your amateur career going into your pro career. So, a lot of us were paying attention to that. And once again, like I said a minute ago, Robbie, you're just that kind of dude, man. You hate talking about yourself, but one of the championships that you had at Loretta Lynn's was in the A class, which is essentially your next step down from being a professional racer, at the elite level where you're racing on TV and you're doing the Supercross and the outdoor nationals. And one of your overall wins in that A class at Loretta Lynn's was actually against Brock Sellards and Ricky Carmichael. Which, yep, and I'm sure that that's one of those things that it's like, a lot of folks may not pay attention to, but people, especially around the motorcycle world, they affectionately refer to Ricky Carmichael as the GOAT, the greatest of all time, and there's not a whole lot of people that will argue that, but you got a chance to put it on paper, and you beat the GOAT at Loretta Lynn's, and that's something not a lot of people can say.
Yeah, I get lucky every now and again, and Ricky, he was definitely a fierce competitor, and he earned it. That dude's probably worked harder than any of them out there, and he came from humble beginnings, and he really worked hard for what he's got, and that was. Probably a little bit of my downfall. To a certain degree, I know it was to some of it. Like I said earlier, I kind of I had too many things and hobbies that I was into, and I loved racing, and I rode damn near every day back then. But training and going to gyms and stuff like that, that was just for a day. That was when it was raining and you didn't have nothing else to do.
Couldn't go outside.
I didn't know anything about fitness and health and eating right and diets and everything else, and a lot of people didn't so much back then. Most of us just went out and burned motos, and Ricky was one of those where he raised the bar for everyone, and when he started training hard and working with I think Alan Baker and all that stuff, that was when he really. Nobody could stop him, and everybody's trying to figure out what this guy's doing, and he was just grinding,
Yep.
Most of us going in and putting an hour or something on the track each day, that dude was riding sun up to sun down and hitting the gym every day, And when one person does that and raises the bar, then if you're going to run with them, then you got to do the same thing, and that's what you're seeing today. These guys nowadays are crazy athletes.
No doubt.
Motorcycle is just a piece of the puzzle nowadays. These guys spend more work in their fitness than they probably do actually in seat time.
Yeah, and a lot of the old school guys. There's a kind of an adage out there, man. That back in you guys' day, and I feel like that, like your generation, you and Ricky and some of the other guys. You kind of paved the way into the whole, what we're seeing now. But I feel like that you guys, in a way, were more racers. Kind of like your NASCAR, drivers, and the kids now, they're more athletes. And like you said, the motorcycle is just their tool. Right. No different than a baseball bat or a baseball glove or a football helmet. The motorcycle is that's just their discipline. Is motocross as opposed to football or basketball or baseball, but they're more athletes, and of course they've still got the competitive spirit and the racer's attitude. If you see your top guys, today, your Jet Lawrence and your Kenny Roxons and those guys. I mean, they still got that racer attitude, but they are more kind of straight edge athletes, I feel like, than the generation that came out of the late 90s.
Yeah, they're definitely a different breed, and even with the technologies and stuff that came into it these days, it's funny to hear some of these, some of these younger kids complain about this, or the bike's not doing that, or suspension's not working right, and or ain't got enough power to do this or that, and where, back in the old days, it was run what you brung. Half the bikes out there, were beat all to hell. As long as it started up and ran, you were going racing, The damn thing was flopping in the section, you held on tighter, You made it work, where, nowadays something don't go right. It seems like people's first thing to do is they go to the mechanic and blame it on the mechanic or a bike set up first.
Yeah, the bike's not handling right, man. Yep.
Yeah, instead of just figuring out a way to make it work, it's definitely a total different atmosphere out there, and they're all still die-hard competitors, and then these kids nowadays are so serious and so fearless at such a young age, and my amateur career and coming up, I was still just riding dirt bikes with my buddies, I like to catch air and have fun, I wasn't on a motorcycle, I was on a skateboard or a BMX bike, it was just about, extreme sports and having a good time, and once you start kind of getting farther up in your career, of course, you start realizing you start to become a little more of a job and money starts getting involved, and especially when you get old enough, your parents step out the picture, and you're like, oh crap, I'm on my own, now what, And I moved out when I was 17 years old and moved to Tennessee, and Steve Litz took me under his wing and started a team, and I slept in his garage for a while, and lived on a pull-out couch in his garage, and it wasn't a bad gig though, because you had a hot tub in the garage, you had a couple cool Harleys sitting in there, and a washing machine, it wasn't too bad of a gig, So he gave me my first opportunity, and and I went on my own then, and I've been taking care of my own stuff since then.
That's yeah, we're definitely going to talk some more about that in the Moto Planet and Litz Racing days and all that. But a little bit of what led into that was you won those Loretta's titles towards the end of your amateur career after being there 11 times, which for some of our listeners who aren't quite versed in the ins and outs of the motocross industry, I mean, just making it to Loretta Lynn's at all is a big deal. I mean, it means you're in whatever class that you're racing in or age group that you're racing in, you're pretty much the top 40 of the racers in that division that are trying to make it there. So you win 11 times, you won 3 championships, which is freaking crazy. And then once again, you started getting some attention from big name brands. And one thing that stands out to me was, and this was cool for 90s kids. I mean, it was when, we were still using VCRs. And Fox, which is now, you can find Fox in any surf and dirt store or PacSun. I mean, everybody, almost you can think of that likes to do outdoor stuff, you see them in a Fox t-shirt or a Fox hoodie. Well, back then they were pretty exclusive to just motocross, and they had some apparel and stuff, but they made motocross gear, and they decided to start making some movies, and they named them Terra Firma. And if I remember correctly, Terra Firma meant something like, correct me if I'm wrong, Robbie, it's like sky, dirt, and something, or I don't remember exactly what Terra Firma meant, but I just remember they were badass movies, and they made like 3 or 4 of them. And you were actually featured, and I know of at least one of them. What was that like? Tell some of the folks listening, what was that like for a young kid? I think you were 16 or 17 at the time to be featured in like a movie.
Yeah, I was in, I believe, Terra Firma 3 they had done. Yeah, it was a really cool time for the industry. They were kind of the first ones that kind of got into doing videos. And I remember when the first video came out, everybody just, was blown away, thought it was so cool. Doug Henry and all these guys and stuff were in it, and then to be able to be a part of one of them was just even cooler, And I believe actually I might have been around the last year, my last run at Loretta, that might have been around 96 when we shot that, because we actually shot it while we were at Loretta Lynn's. And we went into the little local town there and shot a little footage and some different things and all. And, Fox was just, they were one of the coolest people and sponsors I think I'd ever had, especially back then. They were one of our first big sponsors, and really looked after us and took care of us. And they were a growing industry then too, so it was cool over the years to, see them grow and Todd Hicks and John Fox and the guys over there, man, they were just awesome to deal with. And Todd was always one of those. I've not run into him for 10 years and bump into him, and it's just like yesterday. And they're just some of the coolest people you could ever meet. And they're passionate about what they do. And it's a really cool damn company. And but they broke the mold and started the whole video trend. And it really neat to be able to be part of that. And maybe one of these days when I'm old grandpa and everything else, there'll be some cool video of me still out there floating around somewhere, maybe.
Definitely, dude. And it's cool to sometimes look back on, and like you said, man, we're kind of getting old now, but like my son, he's 16 years old, and he's just a sports nut. Any kind of sports, whether it's stick and ball sports or motorsports, NASCAR, motorcycle racing, or whatever, he's ate up with it. And it was so funny. I remember the first time I was able to introduce you to Owen, my son, and we kind of telling him some old stories and things like that. And of course, he did what all young kids do now. He went back and pulled up the Google and started typing in Robbie Horton and Robbie Horton motocross, and that dude would like come to me like, "Dad, did you know Robbie raced at Anaheim, California, and this year, and he finished in this place, and da 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 da." I'm like, "No, I didn't know that." He's like, "Yeah, he did." And I'm like, "Well, that's badass." I mean, Robbie was, he was a great racer, and he's like, "I never knew he was that good." And I'm like, "Yeah, he was pretty damn good." So yeah, I mean, dude, the legacy's there. It's, and I remember when I posted on our social media, that we were going to do this podcast, there was like so many comments like, fucking legend. That was probably the theme of it. Like, this dude is like, a motorcycle icon. So then obviously the Loretta's thing, and then you did the Fox video. What year was it? And I think you said 97 that you started racing professionally. And then how was that compared to your amateur years? What was your first full on professional racing experience like?
It is definitely a little bit of a learning curve. You go from, the amateur days when we go to races, it seemed like it was always the same guys battling it out every weekend, Carmichael and Stellars and, Trey Bentley and all these guys and, and the Jim Nieces and the Jim Chesters and, the Southeast was just where all the fast guys were back then, and even to this day, most of your fast dudes seem like they come out of the Southeast,
100%.
Man, those guys all just push you to the next level, and my first years, I remember I was, everybody's fast when you go to these supercrosses and stuff for the first time, and I went to Indianapolis for my first supercross, and I remember, I didn't really, my nerves didn't bother me too bad, or anything, I'm pretty confident, in myself, I'm a little young punk, and I got this, and I go out there, and I believe I even qualified in like second or third for main event or something. I was doing pretty decent, and we go up to the main event, and back in those days, all the riders stood on the start line in front of their bikes, and the camera crew and the announcer would go from rider to rider, and you'd state your name, where you're from, and this and that. And I remember I was standing there waiting my turn, and they get to me, and they put the camera in my face and the microphone, and they asked me, what my name and where I'm from, and anyhow, I happened to look up, and when I did, there was my head and, your picture and stats on this big Jumbotron thing, and then my heart went 900 miles an hour after that point. I think it finally sunk into where I was really at, and I was a freaking wreck after that. We literally a wreck. We took off. I made it, I think, about a half a lap, and I can't remember exactly who it was. It might have been a dude named Jeff from Memphis back then. I can't remember exactly who it was, but anyhow, we come around, and the very first triple we hit, somehow or another, we all bounced off each other in the air, and I crashed off one way, another dude crashed off the other way, and that was the end of my first Supercross. Went great all weekend and was done in the first half lap of the main event.
So I guess that was going to be my next question was, compared to racing, even though, like I said, Loretta Lynn's and Ponca City and some of those other big events, I mean, they're national events, but now you're racing in front of thousands of people at the stadium and then another hundreds of thousands of people on TV. As you went on in your Supercross career, how did that kind of thought enter into your mind and make you kind of hyped up, or did it make you more nervous to know it's like, man, there's literally hundreds of thousands of people out here watching me race my dirt bike?
Of course, it makes you nervous a little bit, I guess, in the beginning, but it's kind of like anything else. Once you kind of get in there and do your time, and get to know these other guys and realize they're no different from you either, and it's not so bad. But that first season, though, it's stressful. You're nervous and you're trying to prove yourself and trying to get a better job in the industry and better rides and just trying to make a living out of it. And but you get comfortable with it after a while, I guess you could say. It used to freak me out, especially the first year and maybe even in my second year in the Supercross. It used to be crazy. I would go out for practice and some of these guys on the very first lap, were hitting triples and hitting all these damn big jumps, and I'm like, Jesus Christ, man. Don't you want to see what's on the backside first, I'm kind of rolling around and but after, you get a season or two under your belt, you start learning this stuff, and, it becomes part of your programming, and it just becomes second nature, when you look at the face of this jump and this gap, you know how hard to hit it, and then, of course, I tell people, too, to some degree, we're riding two strokes back then, so we're on 125s and all this stuff, and so the torque wasn't there, the four strokes, and, to some degree, some of the jumps were actually a little bit easier because it was pretty much, you just hit everything wide open. It was everything you had. It was third gear, wide open, all you could do, seat bouncing to pretty much clear a triple on a 125. So you didn't have to worry about timing so much as just giving it all it had to get there.
Giving it the berries. Yeah. And once again, going back to, the old school comments, and you see, I think it's even been a meme a few times, on social media that, kids today will never understand, what it's like to hit a Supercross triple on a stock 125. It's like, it's not going to make it. It's not going to make it. Oh, I barely made it.
Yeah. Well, the thing, it really, two strokes in general, I think, are awesome for it, and really help me to this day. Really, it teaches you to carry momentum. And I think people that miss out on the two-stroke phase, they don't know how to flow as well. These new bikes got so much torque and so much power. You can be choppy. You can come in and square up a corner and and point and shoot and launch back out. And with 125, shoot, you were crank. If you had 35, 36 horsepower, hell, you were probably doing something, It was all about carrying momentum, and corner speed. That was the thing that was pounded into me coming up was corners. Everybody can do the jumps, and after that, it's a drag race in and out of the corners, So that was where we put all our focus into, was corners and loops.
Yep.
And that was the secret to indoor racing and to Supercross. And, if you could damn rail a corner and kill a set of loops, you could finish in the front.
To this day, it's fun watching you, even as you described it as you're on the backside of the career, though, it's still fun to watch you, and we'll get into the, what you're doing now later on and some of that other stuff. But, I swear there's been times when I've been to races and you've come off the track and I'm like, he's ripped his damn radiator graphics off. you know, because you're just dragging the side of the bike through these tight corners, and just it's pretty incredible to watch, dude. So let's talk about some of the Supercross stuff some more, man. Another thing that I purposely formatted this question the way I did, because I know, like I said before, I can't get you to talk about yourself, so I had to put some effort and some thought into the way I was going to format these questions. But another pretty important, you know, milestone in your career, man, was you were the first American to ever put a KTM motorcycle on the podium at an American Supercross event. So talk about that experience a little bit, Robbie. I mean, what was that like after that happened?
Well, at that point in my life, that was probably the coolest thing that could have ever happened to me. That was not only a first for KTM at the time, but it was my first podium also. You know, so it made it that much sweeter. And you know, that was back in 1998. You know, KTM wasn't really on the scene even then, and they were trying to get their foot in the door. You know, and I don't know if they, you know, they couldn't find anybody that wanted to ride those things back then or what. But we ended up, you know, Steve Litz put together a program with them, and with Litz Racing, and we got a shop full of motorcycles and KTMs, and we went racing and built the best bike we could out of them, and they were actually, you know, performed a lot better than most people would have thought. Obviously, you know, it got on the podium of Supercross, you know, and up to that point, a KTM was nothing but a trail bike, you know. So they were KTM was pretty damn excited about it, you know, and their motors were always great, you know, and the only issues we had back then, you know, which like I said, there was a learning curve for them also, coming from, you know, more of GP and Woods backgrounds, that, you know, the chassis couldn't hold up to these big ass jumps we got in Supercross and over here in the States, and you know, we were snapping head and necks off of them, and you know, and I've always been a real big seat bouncer, I guess you could say, and I could literally, I would rip the subframe off the bike with the bolt still in the frame, seat bouncing on them so hard. So it was really cool because, you know, at the same time we were kind of this experimental stage, and got to do a lot of R&D type stuff and figure out how to make these things better, and people from KTM and even White Power Suspension back then, you know, they would come over, and you know, and we developed all kind of cool stuff, and actually in the earlier for the models after that, the 99 and the 2000s and stuff like that, the actual neck and design and stuff on those frames, a lot of that R&D come out of, you know, Steve Litz's shop there in little old Buckville, Tennessee, you know, and I think that's part of it too, you know. They were kind of blown away by what these kind of no-name guys with basically no budget at all, and some motorcycles, what we were able to accomplish, you know. And like I said, it was also my first podium too. So I was, of course, on cloud nine, and it was worst possible conditions ever you can imagine, really, for a Supercross. You know, it was in Tampa, and when you know it freaking poured down rain all weekend long. So and they didn't have wasn't a dome back then, so you know, you're just racing in a bowl full of water with some pumps in it.
Total mutter.
I never forget the loop section. You know, when you got to the corner before the loops, the rut was so deep. You put your legs on top of the radiator shroud, and the rut was from the corner all the way through the loops. You know,
jeez,
you just kept your legs up on the radiator shrouds all the way through. You know, and it was all you could do just to be able to double the first two of the triple. You know, and your pegs were dragging the ruts coming off of them. It was pretty sketchy race, but it was pouring down rain, and you know, it was my first podium, so I'm all excited. And it's pouring rain, so half the stadium just started to clear out, except for the die-hard people. And nobody's standing on the podium because it's pouring down freaking rain, you know. And I'm like, hell no, this is my first podium. I'm getting on that damn thing.
I'm going.
So I'm up You know, I'm about the only dude up there on the podium in this pouring ass rain, and you got these crazy diehard fans that are standing out there screaming and raising hell, and next thing you know, I'm throwing my shirt to the crowd and everything else, and I could have died that night and been perfectly content. That was
That
one of the
yeah,
most amazing things I think will ever happen in my career.
I think this was back before pay-per-view and all this stuff, but I think we all and I don't remember what was even going on like with your career at the time, dude, but I remember I think maybe some of us that were racing, still racing amateurs had come out to Bluntville and spent a little bit of time with you and watched you race or watched you practice, and we're like, man, this is going to be Horton's year. And I want to say we threw like a little Supercross watch party for that race, and watched it. I don't know if it was recorded live or not, but I remember it was on ESPN2, and we were pumped for you, and just like I talked about earlier, man. Just hey, I know that guy, you know. And yeah, you killed it, man. And in a lot of ways, probably put KTM on the map. You and Steve Litz, and to this day, a lot of folks still refer to Steve as, just a mad scientist. He just sees things and comes up with ideas that nobody else thinks about, and and still to this day is relevant, in the suspension world, the chassis world. I mean, he builds things and comes up with things that most people don't think about. And then, going back to you and just your way of doing things, Robbie, that kind of segues into, my next topic with you. You always kind of did things your own way. I remember back then in those days, there wasn't a whole lot of professional racers that were covered in tattoos and piercings and, dyeing their hair. And yeah, most of the top riders, especially back then, they were clean cut and yes, sir, no, sir. And just kind of, I don't know, man, you'd see like an interview of them on the podium, and they were almost kind of like robots. They were programmed to talk a certain way and say a certain thing and look a certain way. But I always got the feeling you never really played the political game. How do you think that no, go ahead.
You're breaking up a little bit. That's me. I don't know. I've always just been myself, and that's the thing. You got to be true to yourself, and I've always just kind of. And the big thing is, I've just always kind of stuck to myself. I'm kind of live kind of a quiet life. I guess we kind of joke about this whole COVID and quarantine thing, and everybody's freaking out about it. And I'm like, man, I've been quarantining for years. This is I know how to do this stuff. I kind of just stick to myself and do my thing, and it probably did hurt me some over the years, I mean, I love talking with people and this and that, but I'm also a pretty shy dude when it comes down to it. I'm not one of these that go beating on people's door and begging for a ride or, and looking for handouts, And I've always been one of those. I'm just going to go do my thing, and if people like me, they like me. If they want to help me, they'll help me. If not, I am what I am, and I'm going to, do my thing, and it's worked out so far. I wouldn't change nothing now. My whole amateur pro career, all of it, it was awesome, and I wouldn't change anything about any of it. I got to go to a lot of cool places and see a lot of things that, most people would need to do in a couple lifetimes, and I owe all that to a damn dirt bike, so that's pretty freaking awesome in its own right,
Absolutely, man. And, I remember, my old man, my dad, he used to always have a saying when I was growing up, when we talked about, who you want to be and who you are and how you're perceived and your integrity and kind of all that, just your character. And he used to always say, my dad, was a lot like your dad. They grew up in the Southeast, back in the old days, and they were raised certain ways. But I remember he used to look at me and say, boy, you can never shave with your eyes closed. And it took me a long time. I had to get older to start to realize what he meant when he would say that to us. And it's like, man, I got to look at myself in the mirror every day. And I don't want to be known to myself or anybody else as somebody who kind of sold out of who I really was to get where I wanted to be in life. And I feel like that you definitely, Robbie, were one of those guys, man. You're like, I'm going to be me, and love me or hate me, but I'm going to be me, and I'm going to let my work on the racetrack do the talking for me. I'm not going to go out and beg anybody for anything. And I think that's, once again, man, just one of the things that, that's going to be your legacy.
Yeah, I hope to leave a little something behind. It's the only bad thing about getting older and older every year. It's like, how much longer can I keep going,
No doubt.
Before to pass some knowledge along, before I start forgetting some of this stuff.
Well, and I feel like, man, and you and I have talked about it before, in the past is, what you're into now, and we'll talk about that a little bit too, more in depth, is, there's been a lot of generations have had to come through Robbie Horton, in the indoor stuff and things like that, man. And I feel like you've probably taught a lot of guys a lot of hard lessons, that's made them better. Some of the factory kids that we see that come out of our area now that have had to go up against you before. So I'm gonna transition from that into into this. We all kind of know the dudes in our area that came from our part of the country and things like that. But when you were racing professionally, you met a lot of people from all over the country and all over the world. What's one or two of the craziest dudes or the most interesting dudes that you met while you were racing professional supercross and motocross?
Ooh, that's kind of a tough one. Everybody in the industry is kind of unique in their own ways, But some of the people out there, can impress you in ways, I guess, off the track, and others, you'd be surprised outside of a motorcycle. They don't know anything. But I don't know, man. It's been really tough. Some of the guys, one that pops in my mind that kind of just surprised me the first time I ever got to meet him, like you would never really expect, was somebody like Mike Metzger. The godfather of the freestyle movement.
Mike Metzger.
He was a crazy man, and to see this guy, tatted all up and doing all this crazy stuff and everything, and he was the wild man, to the point where AMA didn't even like almost have him at the races because they think he would take from the show doing tricks and stuff out there and all. But that's one dude but when you actually sit down and talk with that guy, was one of the smarter dudes I've ever talked to in the industry. He was pretty impressive. First time I ever met him, I know I was pretty impressed with the way he presented himself. And, it's just you can't always judge a book by its cover by no means, and he was a prime example of that, and even some of these guys like Carey Hart and then those guys, he had a decent, racing career but he really made a name for himself, in the freestyle movement and himself, he was just an excellent marketing, self-marketing and, there's been several guys like that in the industry over the years, the Nick Ways and Tyler Evans and some of these guys back then,
Yep. Brian Deegan. I think Brian Deegan's probably
to not only ride but able to put these deals together and to make a very lucrative, business out of it. It's been very successful, and to know these guys in the younger days and everything else, you would think that would be possible.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, Mike Metzger, I mean, I would say a whole lot of things about Mike Metzger, but being a business-minded person and all that would probably be my last thought about that dude. But yeah, I mean, that's a great point, man, because he was able to make a very a very successful career and a good living out of, you know, just being that wild man and just doing whatever. So I think that brings us to a good transition in the podcast too, is, you know, let's move away a little bit from your supercross and motocross career. You transitioned, which is wild to me, from a supercross guy or a motocross guy to something, a motorsport that I think a lot of people probably still to this day aren't too familiar with. It's something called supermoto. And for the listeners who don't, you know a lot about the motorcycle racing industry, it's essentially a mixture of, and Robbie, you can step in and correct me if I'm getting this wrong, but it seems like it's a mixture of supercross, you know, where you're jumping jumps and doing obstacles and things like that. And then you get on like a road racing course and you're essentially like a road racer on a dirt bike. Is that pretty good description?
Yeah. That's pretty much the gist of it. You know, most of them are, you know, probably more asphalt than dirt, you know. I'd say like 70-30 or something like that, you know. But except for exceptions, you know, like the X Games, you know, stuff. It was about half dirt, half asphalt, you know. But yeah, that was a really cool sport, and you know, it kind of went down the toilet with the economy back 08, 09, and all that good stuff. You know, and there's still a little bit of it going on, but it's mainly kind of out west. But that was a real cool sport, you know, and it was to me, it was one of those little things when you're younger. You know, we used to ride our dirt bikes to our friends' houses and stuff like that, you know, and you know, nowadays you go to jail for it. But we used to ride our dirt bike down the road to our buddies' houses and stuff like that, you know. And you always wanted to be like to ride a road race bike, you know, but you know, my parents, there was no way they were going to put me on a sport bike and let me go do, you know, 100-something miles an hour back then. So, you know, when we got to, when I got to go to try that stuff, that was a different transition from trying to, you know, from dirt to, you know, you're loose and you're trying to find traction and everything else, to when you hit the asphalt, you feel like you can't get knocked off the track, that you just stuck to it, you know, and then with the high speeds involved and everything else, it was a little bit of a learning curve, you know. You used to 45, 50 miles an hour on the dirt, you know, and all of a sudden, you know, on the 450s, we were getting up, you know, 110, 115 miles an hour on a dirt bike.
That's crazy. That's crazy.
You know, next thing you know, you're locking up the brakes and cutting off into, you know, a park or into an infield, and there'd be a damn supercross track, you know, and then you're trying to remember in the back of your mind you don't have any knobs, you know, so you know you got to kind of throttle control and it was everything, you know. Brakes didn't really do a whole lot when you don't have no knobs grabbing the dirt, you know. So it was you had to kind of flip your way of thinking real quick, you know. But then all of a sudden, a second or two later, you're back in the asphalt again, and you know you got to flip your habits around again, you know. And I loved it. It was a really cool sport, and you know, and it brought out some interesting riders, you know. And it was one of those things that, even before my time, I guess the early supermoto races they actually had were way back in the 70s, you know, and it was over a dispute of who was better riders, motocross guys or road racers. So they decided to basically put an event and mix the two together and see what happens. And
I did not know that. I didn't know that was the origin of the sport.
It's, in the couple years, 3 years of supermoto racing I did, the motocross guys seemed to be the ones that were staying in the front of the pack more than the road race guys. So I like to think those dirt bikers are better.
Totally unbiased opinion. But no, man. But that is kind of one of those things that and you know I love you like a brother, but it's one of those things that's kind of always pissed me off. It's like, man, this dude, if you put him on two wheels, it doesn't make a shit what he's doing or what the environment is or whatever. Like, he's going to excel at it. And that's something, I mean, I've watched you do over the years is, I mean, throw you in the woods, throw you on a supermoto course, throw you on a arena cross or whatever, man. It's like it's one of them guys that he's just excels on anything with two wheels involved. And you did that pretty well with the supermoto thing. Was it 08 maybe X Games? Is that yeah 2008 X Games?
X Games, but the first year I got to go was in '07, and it was kind of cool to actually win as an alternate. And X Games back then it was all about the TV. They want X amount of riders on the track no matter what. So you always had these. They always took some alternate guys, in case somebody got hurt or whatever. And so I actually got to go out as an alternate, and I was a new guy in supermoto. Nobody knew if I could ride these things or not. They knew I knew how to ride supercross, and that was it. So they put me on the alternate list, and I got to go out and do practice and all that stuff as an alternate. And I was actually turning there some decent times and everything, and didn't know if I was going to get the race or not. And then the day of the race, I got a phone call that morning, and telling me to be on the track in an hour. And I was racing, and somebody had backed out or gotten hurt or something, and anyhow, I got my foot in the door, and I lined up. And the first year we done it kind of interesting. They done we raced for, I think it was about an hour, and they actually made us do tire changes and pit stops, almost like a NASCAR race. So that was kind of interesting. We had to have a whole pit crew with fire suits and the whole 9 yards, and it was mandatory. You had to do a tire change. So throughout the race, sooner or later, you had to whip it through the pits and throw it on the stand, and they would change your tires out as fast as you could and take back off.
That's crazy.
It was cool. It was definitely pretty cool, and I was pretty impressed. Our first year going out there doing it, I think we had the second fastest tire changing time out there, and that was pretty awesome. And I believe I ended up like 7th or 8th, my first year out there. I was pumped. I was so excited I got to race and be part of the X Games.
In the X Games, yeah. I mean, and that was really the height of the extreme sports market, really, honestly.
Part of it, man, was so freaking cool. They X Games was one of those places they treated you like royalty. It was even in Supercross and motocross, it's still always a money gimmick. You got to pay for this, sign up for that, all this stuff. X Games, there is no sign up. Everybody there, all the athletes there, everybody, you race for free, you do everything for free. They had, rider lounges with anything you could think of. They even had a Chick-fil-A set up in that thing. You could play PlayStation, eat Chick-fil-A in between your races, and watch all the different events on the monitors. And there was just so much cool stuff happening everywhere. Like I said, I was a skater coming up and a BMX guy and all that. So I was like a kid in a candy store, man. I was running around all over the place. Look at this, look at that, look at this. Holy cow, watch this.
That's cool.
It's awesome. And then fortunately, I did good, and and I got to race the full season the next year, and got invited back for '08, and got to line up out there. But in '08, they done a little bit different format. They took out doing the tire changes and taking off in pole positions on the asphalt and reverted it back more to a supercross. And we actually took off from the starting gate on the supercross track with a dirt start, and started in the dirt, and then of course went into the asphalt. So it made for a little bit different deal where you're kind of used to all season starting on the asphalt, where you got traction versus taking off behind a starting gate with dirt with no knobs on your tires.
Yeah.
When you drop, you want to pin it, go as hard as you can, and the harder you gassed it, the slower you went. So it took a lot of strategy to try to get across that gate and get a good start and not blow the tire off of it the whole time.
That's wild, man. And
come out with a decent start and work my way up, and my strong point in the supermoto was always in the dirt, and I didn't come from a road race background, but I got to where I could hold my own on the asphalt and push it in there pretty deep. But my thing was, if I could just keep them close to me to get to the dirt section, I'd get them in the dirt, and that particular year, we dropped into the top of the stadium and come down into the track. They had a rhythm section through there that I was able to pull some a rhythm off that nobody else was doing, and tripling down through there, and it was enough to give me an edge. And I started working my way up, and got it to the fourth and then the third, and then next thing you know, I crept up into second place, and Jeff Ward was leading the race at the time, and I'll never forget, I started slowly creeping in on him some, and I was getting so excited, and then all of a sudden, I don't know, it just dawned on me that, holy shit, I'm running second in the X Games, and I my own head a little bit, and I'm like, oh God, I wanted to push, I wanted to catch him and try to win, but at the same time, I'm like, oh, what if I mess up and crash and go down and just blow the whole thing? Maybe I should just settle and stay right here for second and everything else. And it was kind of funny with the last lap of the race, and I come down through the rhythm section and all. I checked up and didn't even do it on the last lap because I was afraid I was going to crash and blow the whole thing.
Oh, man. I mean, I can't even imagine what that was like, what you were thinking on that last lap, and like, dude, I'm gonna silver medal in the freaking X Games.
Man, it was so awesome, I mean, we were one of the smallest teams out there, and Mountain Motorsports and then Steve Litz were, put this little deal together, and we were just doing our thing and kicking ass, man, and it was just to me, it's so much more gratifying. It's nice having all the big cool stuff, but at the same time, when you go out there and kick everybody's ass on a bike that costs half the amount of what theirs do, and and half the R&D and everything else, man, it's just so much more gratifying knowing I just kicked that dude's butt on a $5,000 bike and he's riding a $100,000 bike,
Yep, and that's something, man, that once again, talking about legacy and all that, I think that's one of those things that you and Steve Litz are kind of always going to be known for, is just, punching above your weight class, no matter what you were doing. And you guys probably did it better than anybody else. And have made a lot of money and probably pissed a lot of people off, along the way. They're like, how the hell did we get beat by these guys? But it was just, whatever the combination was that you and Steve were able to put together with man and machine, man, it's pretty awesome to look back on throughout your career, and Steve as a tech or a mechanic it's pretty cool.
Yeah, we've been able to pull some cool stuff off, and I've probably done some of the best results I've had in my life. I've been on the, brokest budgets and everything else we've had, and like I said, diamond comes from a lump of coal, man. We have nothing and we try to turn it into something, and we didn't have $1 million to put into some R&D, but we had a toolbox and we had some tools and we had some good redneck ingenuity, and we were going to figure out how to make it work, and I'll never forget racing Daytona Cross in '99. We were racing down there, and I passed Ernesto Fonseca in the whoop section in the qualifiers. Back then whoops were just my strong thing to begin with, and I said, me and Steve, we've worked a lot together over the years. He's been doing my suspension for a long time, and we had that thing dialed in, and I passed Ernesto like he was sitting still in the damn whoop section. And by the time we got back to the trailer, AMA and the Yamaha Troy team was over there protesting us over our suspension, saying there was no way legal suspension could, go through a loop like that and handle like that and everything. And I'll never forget that was one of Steve's proudest moments, when AMA tore that suspension down and looked inside of that thing and realized it was nothing but some damn Steve Litz built suspension. It was just some modified stock parts with a valve stack, and working better than these factory guys at the time. And
That's awesome.
Come back over to the trailer and just box of parts in there and told us we were good.
Rebuild this shit. Yep, you're good. That's awesome.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Dude, and yeah, I mean, that's just, for the folks that do know you and know Steve Litz and, kind of know you guys on a personal level. It's even more cool just knowing you personally. But yeah, man, you guys, you always, and in a way, and Robbie, you correct me if this is, if you think I'm wrong here, but I think that maybe you guys probably showed up a little bit with a chip on your shoulder, in a lot of those events, because you didn't have the $1 million budget and the year's worth of R&D. It's like, we're still going to kick your ass.
Yeah, a little bit. Back then, it's still to this day. There's a big political side to it all. And for us, in those times, we were kind of the outcast team. AMA didn't want nothing but big, shiny 18-wheeler rigs and, these elaborate kits. And they didn't want to see some pickup trucks with bikes in the back of them or these little, they wanted all this big fancy stuff, So most of the time we'd be tucked back in the corner of the pit area somewhere, like out of sight, and they wouldn't give you the time of day, and then the next thing you know, you're up there kicking ass and doing good, and it's funny how all of a sudden their tone will start changing some, and it's funny. I never forget there was a guy with Clear Channel back then that one of the few higher ups that took a liking to us, and he always started kind of looking out for us, and we started doing good in the Supercrosses, especially in '99. We finished third in the Supercross series in '99. A straight privateer team, just me and old Steve Litz and putting together what we could, and by the time we got done halfway through the season, we were whooping up on these boys. And anyhow, next thing you know, they started letting us kind of park with the 18-wheelers and all a little bit. And it was funny. You had all these big 18-wheeler rigs and then our little dually and our little trailer over there set up. And we just drove all damn night to get there, everything else, all looking like we're hungover, but we were there and we went racing and we kicked their asses with nothing and made for some of the best road trips home, man.
That's awesome. And eventually, you did, folks were always paying attention because of, we talked about it earlier, your amateur career. You weren't some nobody, you didn't come out of nowhere. People knew who Robbie Horton was, but eventually you did get, to the point where you were making enough noise, where you actually did get signed to a factory deal, with Suzuki, right?
Yeah, I guess it was in the '99. I had gotten approached from the Suzuki 125 team back then. They called the Primal Impulse team. They were kind of the pro circuit of Suzuki back then. And anyhow, I got offered a deal with them, and but I had to go to the West Coast. That was the only thing. I'm not a big West Coast fan. Anyhow, it's cool to go out there and play for a few weeks, but after that, I was kind of over it. I want some rednecks and some trees and some sweet tea. But I needed a job, and they gave me a great opportunity, and so I ended up jumping on board with them and took off out west and did the West Coast series, and it went decent. I had a podium in Anaheim 2. I got on the podium, and I finished decent for this year. I think I might have been 7th or 8th or something for the series on the West Coast. I didn't do quite as good. It was a little bit different when the East Coast is got rutted and real tacky, and it's just a different dirt. And you kind of got out there, it was more, especially then, the outdoor stadiums out west, and the ground was hard as a rock, and then when they put the water to it, it gets slick, and it was kind of a different animal to ride, And I think, especially for like these 450 guys, and stuff that's got to bounce from coast to coast, it's got to be kind of a little bit of a transition. Used to being able to pin it full throttle out of the corners on the East Coast to the West Coast. You got to back off a little bit, or you're gonna blow the tire off.
Yep, absolutely.
But it was a lot of fun, and they treated me good, and unfortunately they had some issues, I guess, toward the end of their year, and they ended up having to had some money problems. Had to close up shop by the end of the year, but at that point, I just figured, I made a little money. I guess I don't know what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna do my own thing as I always do, and I got a mechanic, and everybody had always kept me on 125s, and really I was always a better big bike rider than I was on a little bike on the 125s, but you had to take the jobs where you could, and I always wanted to do a 250 Supercross. I'm gonna do a 250, and I'm going out west, and I'm gonna do the whole damn series, and I'm doing it on my own, and got a mechanic, got a bike, got my stuff all put together, and then not too long before I headed out west, I tore my ACL in my knee, and I wasn't really sure what to do at that point of the game, so I decided, I got too much money, and I'm going,
I'm going anyway.
And went for it. I went out there, stayed a few weeks practicing, and then went to Anaheim and ran and actually qualified into the night show and all that good stuff. And then in the qualifiers, I ended up casing one of the jumps in the rhythm section, and blew my ACL was already torn, so I had it taped all up and everything else. And when I cased the jump, I actually hyperextended my knee so far it split the tape down the side of my legs. It looked like somebody just took a knife and cut the tape on the sides of my legs.
Jeez.
And anyhow, needless to say, that was pretty much the end of that. And we ended up packing up, licking my wounds, and headed back to the East Coast.
Jeez,
man.
Get
operated on. But that was the end of that one. But yeah, it was. I've been fortunate though to, I was able to keep things going. From, I guess 97, my first full year, all the way up to 2005 in the Supercross, and and then we got into doing the Supermoto, in 06, 07, and 08, and just never looked back.
Sustained career, man. I mean, to say the least. And I mean, shit, dude, it's 2022, and shameless plug here. The Patriots Unafraid podcast actually got its name from, a little thing that we've been doing the past year or two, and that's the Patriot Honda racing team, which I'm proud to have you as a as our featured rider, really. And you're still doing it, man. You're still you're racing the indoor arena cross thing, and still doing it at a damn high level against kids that are in their teens. Dude, I mean, and you and I have talked about it a bunch, just because I am pretty fascinated being around your age and knowing how I feel every day, and then seeing what you're capable of still doing on a freaking motorcycle, dude. Like, how do you do it, Robbie? Is it a mental thing? I mean, are you just mentally that damn tough, or do you?
No, I guess it's to a certain degree. I've just been one of those that never give up. And the way we were brought up, no matter what place you're in or how many times you crashed or whatever, if you still got life in you, you fight to the end. And that's the thing. I've been a big believer of, you slow down, you go down. And I've tried to keep myself going, and try to, at least stay as good a shape as I can with the time I have, and a lot of people don't know that, I have what they call Huntington's disease that I've been battling with for a long time, and my whole family has, and part of the deal with that is, the doctors tell us, the stronger and tougher you are when it gets on you, the more it's going to fight to take you down, so I figured the better shape I am, the tougher I am, harder it's going to have to fight to take me down. So I'm not going to give up on it. And, as long as I can keep fighting, I'm going to keep fighting.
Yeah, dude, and that's as a friend of yours, and as impressed as I've always been by your ability on a motorcycle and all that, Robbie. I tell everybody, I'm like, I consider you a friend before anything else, before a dirt bike racer, or even since we started the team thing or whatever. It's like, Robbie's a friend of mine, but even before that, dude, like you were, and I know that you hate to hear this shit, but I mean, you were always a hero of mine growing up. And then when I got out of the military and kind of started coming back around the racing scene and got reconnected with you, and then I remember the first time, I think it was just one of our mutual friends, Jared Black, was telling me about the Huntington's thing and about Richie and who's, he's dealing with it pretty rough right now. And then you, and I was like, damn, man, like these guys, they really are. I mean, they're just the different breed of people. And the way I've seen you kind of take it on from a mental aspect and a physical aspect, dude, it's just, it's pretty damn inspirational. And, I know how you feel about the military and folks like that and guys that have been wounded in combat. And you and I've talked about that a lot. But I'll tell you, man, I mean, you're cut from that same kind of cloth as, the guys that you hear about that are double amputees below the knee that end up, going back and jumping out of airplanes and doing that kind of shit, man. It's, you're one of those kind of people. That was, besides your illustrious motorcycle career, man, that was one of the main reasons why I wanted for you to be one of the guests on this podcast, is to talk about that kind of stuff, because I think that hearing those stories can inspire other folks to not give up and not quit when things get tough and, when the chips are down, so to speak.
Right. Oh yeah, yeah. That's I owe it all to my dad and my family and everything else, because they've always just give it your all and never give up, and that's in anything. Even with racing and coming up, you always want to win and all that good stuff. But as long as we gave it our all, my parents knew if we were trying or not. You could tell.
Oh yeah.
That or not, as long as we fought to the end, they didn't care where we finished. As long as we gave it everything we had. And that's the same thing in life, I guess. I don't want to look back and have any regrets, or man, I could have done that a little harder, or we'll give it all I got. You ain't got but one shot.
Absolutely. And I feel like, man, yeah, that attitude, man. I always tell my son, PMA, man, positive mental attitude. A positive mental attitude will take you further in life than talent, than ability, than really anything. You can overcome a lot with that. And so now I'm going to use that statement to transition into you now. Not only are you still racing at a pretty damn high level. I'm proud to say for the Patriot brand. And I really am proud of that. But dude, beyond that, you're a business owner. You're a dad, you're a husband. So knowing you like I do, I'm going to ask you this question. If I would have came to you 25 years ago and said, Robbie, in 2022, man, you're going to have a little girl, you're going to be married, you're going to be building your second home and running a construction company, what would you have said?
I don't know. Ultimately in the end, it's inevitable. You can only race for so long, and that's the tough thing about the industry. Period. You can only do it for so long, and you got to you got to find something, you know. And for me, I was fortunate enough. My dad started this company, you know, back in the late '70s, and we've been fortunate to, keep things going ever since. And it's been fortunate for me too to allow me to be able to have the lifestyle I have, and be able to have a little freedom to do things. And if I worked a regular job with somebody else, taking off a couple days every week to go to arena cross and everything else, it might not work out so good. But ultimately, even from a young age, though, man, I always wanted that family, and to have what my family had, and to be able to share those things with, my kids and stuff like that, and be able to pass some of this stuff on, and thankfully with the technology and everything else nowadays, I got a, healthy, almost about to be 3-year-old little girl, and, that's probably been, racing everything aside, that's probably the biggest gratification I've done in my life, and having a kid and it puts things in perspective for sure, and gives you a new purpose. And I like taking the responsibility on. It's a good responsibility. Enjoyed every minute of it.
No doubt, man. No doubt, and for us who've been blessed enough to be around that little girl, myself and my wife, we always say, man, it's almost like she got a perfect 50-50 mixture of her mom and dad. She's a little bit of Tasha, a little bit of Robbie, but she's a badass little girl, and special little kid. And it's been fun watching her grow up, and fun watching you and Tasha as parents and raising that little girl. And she's definitely a Horton through and through. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah. Oh yeah. She's racing already. She's racing at the BMX track on her Strider bikes on the weekends now already.
I think I remember telling.
I don't think we stand a chance with her. She's all about some brooms and going fast. That's one of her favorite things to tell me to do when we're in the truck or on a motorcycle riding around the field. She look at me and tell me, "Go fast, Daddy, go fast."
She's
we're gonna have our hands full. I'm not sure what she's gonna be racing or what she's gonna get into, but whatever it is, she's gonna be fast. I know that.
Yeah, it's gonna be well, and it's going back to the beginning of this conversation, man. It's just one of those things where whatever it is you're doing, you're all in, and I feel like that you and Natasha, your wife, you guys make a great team because you guys both kind of approach life from that thought process. It's like, man, we're gonna give it whatever we got, whether it's our job or our hobbies or whatever, man. You guys are passionate and you're intense, and I think Roxy's gonna be probably twice as intense when she gets older.
Oh yeah. She's definitely she's mentally strong, and she's all about it. Like that, she's got her mama's determination by no means. She's like that little girl. She gets half her mama's motivation and a little bit of my talent. She'll be something. That's for sure.
No doubt. So, well, it's that time. And like I said before, man, the guests that I bring onto the podcast, Robbie, they got to meet a certain criteria. One of them is, obviously because it's in the name, man, you got to be a patriot. You got to be patriotic and love your country. Some folks use the word like-minded, or whatever, but I don't necessarily even. That's not a criteria for this. I want folks that have different opinions on things from me, and because I've always said that if you can't go into a conversation with especially somebody you respect, and even admire and learn something then you're just closed minded. You don't want to learn anything. But one thing that the folks who've listened to the first couple episodes that they'll notice as a trend is towards the end we transition a little bit from the individual into kind of some current events and politics. And I know that you've never really shied away, at least privately, from expressing your opinion and your views. And so I want to kind of get into a little bit of that, man. And I want to, kind of talk about some of the things that are going on in America right now. That's, the elephant in the room, so to speak. Some political things. And what I want to get some of your thoughts on how you see kind of the direction of the country going. And you can get into detail as much as you're comfortable with and feel like saying. But where do you see the country going right now? Do you think we're heading in a good direction? Do you think we're heading in a bad direction? And if so, or if not, what do you attribute it to?
I think we're hung right in the middle of the road. It's like you're like a turtle stuck in the middle of the damn road, don't know which side to go. It's so many people's. I could take a little bit from both sides of the table, but it's. I don't know. It's definitely a different world, and it's hard to predict, where things are going to go. But you look back at history. One of the few things I do remember from school, and history repeats itself. And it may not be in the exact same manner or not, but I think if you look back at our past, you probably can find what's going to happen in the future. And
no doubt.
I think. Like the history is going to repeat itself at some point. Things got to give and break and go one way or the other. That's all we can do is sit back and see what happens and watch the show. But that's why I'm kind of glad I live where I live and I got a little room to run and if shit hits the fan, no matter what, at least I know I can take care of my family and. And we'll get by and be just fine regardless. But I wouldn't put my guard down at any time soon. That's for sure.
That's it, man. And you and I have talked offline a few times, about this kind of stuff and just, how far that it seems like the country, America has drifted towards a certain side, since we were kids. Just some of the, policies that have become popular and ideals that have become popular and kind of mainstay in our culture, even 6 or 8 years ago, man, you would never have guessed that those ideals would become mainstream. I give an example. We've got actual elected politicians in America now who openly claim to be socialist. When you and I were kids, man, it's like, what? Like, that would never happen in America. But here it is. And like I said, 20 years ago, man, that would be unheard of. So it's for me, it's concerning. And I'm sure you probably don't feel too much differently.
No, it's definitely I don't, so where do you draw the line, at some point I don't know, I don't like the whole it's just gotten into such a damn political game, and I don't even think with all these Republican parties and Democrats and Independents and. To me, they're all bullshit. It's just any damn committee or group of any of them. We're all goddamn Americans, and and I don't think anybody, one man, should have any power. If anything, they need to have a presidential committee. Just like the U.S. and the economy is just a big business.
Yeah, absolutely.
We got to make money or we're go broke, we're losing money. So. Look at these big corporations, and this and that. You think there's one guy that runs everything at GE or at Apple or they have
No.
whole committees.
Board of directors.
all
Yeah.
that stuff. There's not one. And I think people should be, the American population should be involved in every policy, and if anything, have these, presidential committees or something, but nowadays it's turned into a fight between the parties, and I don't even think people even care who's right or wrong anymore. They just want to win.
Bro, that's it, man.
Damn race, and run the 450 and the 250 class. You don't give a shit. You just want to win.
Yeah, it could be wrong as shit.
Right or wrong.
Yeah, it's wrong as shit, but as long as I win, I'm good. Yeah, dude, it goes back to integrity and just doing what's right. Regardless of what your religious beliefs are or your political beliefs are, man, there's a clear right and wrong typically in society that I think all humans are inherently born with. We know that, if you and I entered into a business deal together, and I knew in my heart clearly I'm taking advantage of you, whether I'm winning or whether I'm losing, something should bother me deep down about that. And I feel like, dude, you hit the nail on the head, man. Is most of the politicians, whether they're Republican, Democrat, Independent, whatever they call themselves, their whole objective is, self-promotion. And not what's best for the everyday American.
Yeah, everybody's got their own little political agenda, and that part shouldn't. That's the thing that just sucks about it all. And unfortunately, the American people and the taxpayers and everybody, we're the ones that take the blunt force of it. The cats in Washington are getting their fat checks regardless. Knowing to invest their money in the right companies at the right time because they know it's about to go down, and make themselves even more money,
Dude, that's so damn crooked too, man. Yeah, if you and I, if Robbie Horton and Adam McGuire did that, well, that's insider trading. We're losing everything that we've worked for and going to jail, but it's for them, it's just, it's everyday life. And I think what drives me crazy about it, man, is we see it. We see it, but there's no, it's like, what do you do? You can vote them out, but then all you're going to do is replace them with the next group of assholes that are going to come in and do the same thing.
Yeah, I would like it. I just think that, the whole political game is bullshit. To me, we need somebody in there that's a freaking an American human being and not some political figure. I'd rather have Billy Bob that plows a field 7 days a week's got more sense of how to run this show than what the presidency does right now, Like I said, they don't teach common sense anymore, and the damn U.S. and the people just lost their freaking common sense, man.
I think that's...
They just need a good old-fashioned redneck up there. That's all the duct tape to fix this shit. And
yeah.
Be right back in there.
That's well said, brother. And I mean, that's the thing. A lot of folks think, well, that's simple-minded or whatever. But I think we might need a little bit more simple-minded, and a lot less, as you said, bullshit. Just somebody who wants to work for a living, who wants to take care of other people who work for a living, and see the country as a whole do better, and quit worrying about the political bullshit and like you said, agendas.
Like they always fighting it, the war on drugs or the war on gangs and everything else. When you got damn two gangs sitting right up there in Washington with damn Republicans and Democrats.
That's it, bro.
It's no different.
That's it.
They're all out for themselves. And, everybody's got their own little, like I said, political agenda behind everything, and then you see some of these guys, I'm going to change parties. It's like, well, this game's not doing so good. I'm going to join this one.
I got to join the game that's going to, that's it, dude. That's it, man. That's well put, man.
They shouldn't be should be American parties. Most of them down, everything's divided. How are you supposed to bring a country together that's starting out divided? You know.
That's it. You're exactly. You're starting off. Yeah, your jump off point. You're dividing the country, whether by political party, by religion, by whatever, race, shit, you name it, man. We're divided right now. Yeah, dude, I don't think I've ever heard it put that way before, but it makes a lot of sense. Well, dude, we're gonna get ready to wrap up, man. But yeah, we're gonna wrap up, man. But I do have a couple of fun type questions I want to ask you before we end this thing. And so what is Robbie Horton's everyday carry? Because I know you carry. I know you're a type of dude that's like, you're not gonna catch me slipping. So what are you carrying these days? What's your
No, depending on my situation, a normal day to day, my go-to is my little Ruger LCP, and that's just a nice easy one. It's got a little clip on that I can tuck it right in about anywhere, and you never know it's there, But if I'm going out on the town and being a little fancier, I may dress it up a little bit and break out the Browning 1911 or something, a little fancier. I got something for every occasion, It just depends on my mood and my outfit. Some days it might be a Glock day, It just kind of depends on what side of the bed I wake up on. But, but no matter what, I got some heat with me wherever I'm at.
I like it. So you're not one of those guys that, I'm a SIG guy or I'm a Glock guy and that's all I can carry. Like, you pretty much carry whatever feels comfortable at the time and situation dictates.
No, I'm not racing. I like them.
I like it.
If it shoots and goes boom and makes a bang, I like it.
That's awesome, dude. Well, Robbie, it's been a blast. I knew it would be. Like I told you, I've been looking forward to this since I started this podcast. It's been a great discussion, man, and I really, really appreciate you giving us your time. I mean, we're going on almost 2 hours now, and I tell people all the time, man, that the older that you get, the more you value time, and for you to give freely of your time to come on and do this, I really do appreciate it. As a friend, as somebody who's kind of looked up to you and respected you for a long time. And, dude, I hope we can have you on again, man, to talk a little more about some different things.
Oh, yeah. I got we could go for a lot more hours pretty easy.
It does seem like it's easy for us to do this. I've said before, man, especially like when you and I get on the phone sometimes and talk. I'm like, man, we're wasting good podcast material right now.
Yeah, we'll have to do an episode or two or something like that.
Absolutely, brother. And give the family my best, brother. And once again, man, I really, really appreciate you giving me your time. And I hope that the folks listening kind of get a little bit more insight into Robbie Horton and appreciate your fantastic motorcycle career, and not just that, man, but what you're doing today, and just being a dad and just being a good dude and a good American.
Well, I appreciate it, man. It's been fun. I enjoyed it, and proud to be part of the whole Patriot program, and hopefully we can take it to the track this winter and represent for the team.
Yes, sir. We're going to get out there and make some noise like we always do. Well, brother, I love you, man. And I can't say it enough. I appreciate your time.
All right, brother. Love you too, man. We'll holler at you later.
Yes, sir.
All right, bro.
Welcome to the Patriots Unafraid Podcast.